Sup, everyone. Welcome. Saturday, slow day. Sorry, I was late. I was out with some friends. And we had a lot of fun. You know, got lost track of the time a little bit. Came home. I mean, I would have been here maybe 10-15 minutes earlier, but there was a bit of traffic along the way. Unfortunately, what the hell, man? Fortunately, there was somebody who got into an accident, so then, held up traffic. Series of events led to the stream being a little late. Hope that's okay with you guys. Today's discussion is about meta, and I don't really want this to be like too focused on educational stuff. More so to kind of understand how the meta of Genshin Impact continues to shift and evolve. More emphasis put on different things at different times depending on whatever the Abyss has going on for it, as well as whatever type of new exciting character is more prevalent, right? So think about it like this. Prior to Nahida coming out, there are Dendro characters. I mean, Tainari was here. People were excited, but surely nobody was going to go around and say that like Dendro has taken over from 3.0. It really took a little while until things had time to mature. We had certain characters that with certain kits that comes out to facilitate a more generalized playstyle. Same thing happens with all other meta compositions and stuff. One character can really change a lot of things in the space of Genshin Impact. And that's basically where I want to start the conversation today. Is that and this is kind of tying to the video I made today, is that when you look at physical carries, a lot of people would think physical carry meta, right? A lot of people say, oh, shatter meta. But nobody really thinks about the reaction when it comes to physical carry. When we talk about metas, usually it's like the most effective, tactics available, right? So you think tactics. The fact that the word meta has tactics in it, well, that is what's is that? Not anagram, but what is that? The abbreviated word for meta has the word tactics in it. And what is tactical about playing physical carries? This is where the conversation has to start, because if we don't start from here, then because we have to define when we talk about meta, right? This is why I think it's very difficult for physical carries to have a meta, because meta involves tactics. Oh, where's chat? There we go. Sorry. Meta involves tactics and physical, meta. I'm just gonna say physical meta has close to no tactics. The only tactics that they have are pertain to the characters and not the fact that they're physical damage units. Right? That makes sense, right? So by definition, there is no such thing as physical meta. Exactly, Stanley. Stanley said there's no such thing as a physical meta because it doesn't exist. There's no most effective tactics. There's no tactic, period. Right? And of course, yeah, the HVK says physical is never, but exactly, but this is what I'm saying is that, and they never will be. Because in the current way the game is designed, you cannot, by the definition of meta, you cannot have a meta for something that has no structure. There are no tactics. Then there are no mono element meta either. Exactly. Mono element has no meta. There's an effective way to play the team. For example, if you want to play Ito, I guess it's called best in slot, right? So it's not meta. The best in slot units to play Ito with are like Goro, Albedo, Zhongli, right? Some people would say Bennett. You can throw Bennett in there as well. But at the end of the day, right, there's no tactics involved. When we talk about tactics, there has to be variation. There has to be different methods of achieving a similar objective. For example, if my goal is to clear Abyss 12 as fast as humanly possible using Quicken, right? There are tactics to speed things up. There are ways to play around the Quicken reaction to speed up or slow down your clears. That's what tactics is about. Rotations should affect this, right? And stuff like that. Which element goes on first? right? Who, like, when should I maximize damage? At what part should I maximize damage? What aspect of this character's kit should I synergize with to maximize damage, as opposed to just, you know, clicking one button and hoping it hits everything. And it's very difficult to have this conversation without clearly defining what we even mean by meta. I think right now meta is such an overly used buzzword within the community. It's like, oh, meta, like, oh yeah, like, oh god, meta. Like, but what do they really mean by meta, right? And this is what we mean when we talk about meta. So I think in many ways than one, the whole word has lost a lot of meaning, right? Not all compositions, not all playstyles, not all ways of damage has a meta. When something has only one possible way to be played, that, like, yeah, by definition, that is meta, because that is the most efficient tactic, but that is the only way available. And some of them are like, and this is why it's very difficult for people to continue playing Eula for 2 years nonstop. Don't get me wrong. There are people that have played Eula for 2 years plus, still playing it. But I'm just trying to highlight the fact that there has been no addition to the character. Some people are looking towards Mika, saying, well, Walrus, after 2 years, we finally do have something. And yes, you do. You have Mika. But just looking at what they highlighted for Mika's kit in the live stream doesn't really scream to me saying, oh, look, Eula's fixed. Eula isn't fixed, right? So Marcus Bullock says, after 3.8, I think Dendro is going to be left out and more HP scaling units for the next meta for Hydro Resonance theme Fontaine. So that's interesting, because I was going to get to that, because every once in a while, I think, give it like 6 months or so almost, give or take, something new kind of takes the game by like storm. It comes in, it kind of really throws up a bunch of different possibilities, and it mainstreams a lot of ways to play the game. I think when Tartaglia first came out, Tartaglia was a great example of what a driver character is. But back in the day, people were so hung up on how to, like, what a main DPS should be, like main DPS, they refused to recognize his potential as a driver. Theory crafters, I'm sure back in the day, were talking about Tartaglia being a great character in his potential to drive and apply Hydro, but people just wouldn't want to listen to that, right? Fast forward to Kokomi. All right. It wasn't until when Kokomi came out, when HoYoverse basically forced you guys, well, forced everybody to be like, look at this character. She does no damage. Okay, she does very little damage. But do you know what else she does? She applies a ton of Hydro. And she heals. That was when, and when she came out, remember the, people going wild. People like, this is a terrible character. She sucks. And after her artifact set came out, which leveraged a little more damage back into her kit, people quickly start to realize, okay, maybe my on-field character isn't always the one meant to be dealing a bunch of damage. Right? It takes time for the community to understand and accept new ways of playing the game and incorporate them into our playstyle and our everyday. Like nowadays, driver teams are some of the most popular teams available. People love having off-field application, leveraging power through reactions, as opposed to just front-loading damage with your own, like your on-field character. It's boring. It's really boring. Tribute Asylum says, Sub Wars, I hope you're doing well. Just want to let you know that I become a channel member because I learned a lot from you, 7 months and counting. Thank you, Tribute. And it really warms my heart because what I mostly do is share my like interest for the game with you guys. I'm not here saying I know more than you guys. In fact, more times than once, I've been educated by chat. All right. So I'm just taking whatever I learn or whatever I know and trying to pass it on as much as I can. I'm glad to hear that you learned a lot. And really what I want to help most people with is kind of open their mind into accepting new ways to playing the game, because you're here to have fun, right? Nobody is here to learn like economics of the world, right? You're not here to try to better yourself. You're not here to how should I say, not better yourself, but like nobody's here to try to get a degree in Genshin Impact. Okay, let's put it that way. That's the best way I can put it. No one's here for that. You guys are here mostly to kind of just share a common interest, and I try my best to facilitate that in this space. Okay, and do forgive me for sometimes, you know, coming out with some really bad takes, objective bad takes, but how can we ever appreciate the good takes if we don't have some bad here and there, right? Okay. Tech the Bar says, Walrus, I don't see Dendro being overtaken. It is too cheap for too much damage. You see, Techie, this is the beautiful thing. Genshin Impact metas, you only add more to it and you rarely take away from it. Right? Think about it like this, chat. Are you guys going to say Vaporize is not meta anymore? No, right? You can't say that because that's not true. Vaporize is just as much meta as it is today as it was when Huta first came out. Now, you guys might look at the numbers and be like, oh, but they're played less. Of course. Right? Of course. Because there's other ways to play the game. There's other ways to get the job. And for example, right now we have incredible Dendro meta, right? But that doesn't mean Vaporize doesn't work. That doesn't mean like Hydro drivers don't work anymore. That doesn't mean Freeze doesn't work anymore. That doesn't mean Morgana doesn't work anymore. Yes, there are certain compositions that for example, Morgana doesn't work as well as it's used to anymore, but it still exists in the game in certain scenarios. It still works. But these methods of playing the game persists and actually are still more than capable of dealing with the contents of the game. That's, I think, one of the reasons why Genshin has remained such a crowd favorite. You guys might think I'm over exaggerating, but Genshin is still really much having an iron grasp within the gacha space. Even like adventure gacha, even like RPG gacha, they have such a strong grip, is because Genshin is fully like, okay, this might sound like I'm kind of licking HoYoverse's boots a little bit, but I just got to give them credit where credit is due. They don't eradicate old ways of playing the game through releases of new ways. Right? For example, if they released Dendro and all the Dendro stuff while also making it damn near impossible to play with the Vaporize with Hydro drivers, so now people who have Vaporize teams already built are feeling like they can't keep up, they can't like clear the content, then we have a big problem, because then HoYoverse is basically funneling and forcing you to adapt to the new stuff, but they don't do that. That's one of the reasons why I think Genshin is great. And they continue to introduce new ways to play the game. Every time they release like a dedicated buffer, they develop certain mono teams, right? Geo, Electro, Nemo, Cryo, and now we're getting physical. I'm sure in the future we're gonna get Pyro, Hydro, and just flesh the whole thing out. Mono teams are a great example of HoYoverse even willing to dump a ton of resource and time into developing certain team comps for people who don't want to play with reactions. What if people don't like figuring out the most optimal way for rotations and character cycling? What if they just want to have one character on the field and buff that character into utter oblivion? That is what mono teams are. Are they efficient? No. They are not efficient. They are some of the least efficient teams in the entire game. if you are sitting here telling me that you want to build a mono team and you're asking me if it's a good idea for a free-to-play, a complete free-to-play player to highly invest into a mono team, I would tell you, no, it's not. Because by investing into a mono team, you are giving up basically potential playtime of other fun ways of playing the game. Dendro is great, and it came out at such a good time in that Hoyoverse can leverage Dendro to have newer players catch up quickly to older players. There are newer players right now. There are players who joined the game in like 3.0 who can probably 36 star the Abyss more consistently than players who started in Inazuma. Because people who started in Inazuma is pretty well known for having some pretty expensive compositions. Think about it. Ayaka. Like Ayaka Freeze, the most ideal way to play Ayaka Freeze is not cheap. You ideally want to have Kokomi, you ideally want to have Shenhe, you ideally want to have Kazuha. That's 4 or 5-star characters. You want to play Raiden Shogun. Raiden Shogun is probably the most free-to-play character released in Inazuma. Hold up, let me think. Yeah, I think Raiden Shogun probably is the most free-to-play character. Right? Let me just double check. I don't think there's another 5-star that was released in Inazuma that is more free-to-play friendly than a C0 Raiden Shogun is. Kazuha's not free-to-play friendly. Kokomi. Maybe Kokomi. Yeah, Kokomi driver teams have been very free-to-play. No, but think about it. With the release of Dendro, Raiden Shogun can literally be a C0 EM elemental skill bot. How is Kazuha not free-to-play friendly? Is he more free-to-play friendly than Raiden Shogun though? Is Kazuha more... You see, this is the question we have to answer. Is Kazuha more friendly than Raiden Shogun? Raiden Shogun's... Think about it like this. What is the best free-to-play team available? Here, let's start with this question. If somebody came into the game, they want the best free-to-play, most effective free-to-play team, the one that's been tested through multiple iteration of the Sparbus, what is the best free-to-play team available? Probably like Hyper Bloom teams, right? Hyper Bloom, Raiden National, like Child National. Nilou Bloom, yeah, Super Nilou Super Bloom. You basically need just like 1 5-star. So like, yeah, national variations are incredibly free-to-play friendly, right? And you got Tartaglia, you got Raiden Shogun, who are like the top choices of those teams. So by definition, I think Raiden should take the cake for the most free-to-play friendly 5-star. And pretty much all other characters released during the Inazuma era, like starting from 2.0, 2.1, 2.2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Most, I guess Yelan. No, Yelan is not that free to play friendly. Come on, let's be serious. Let's be serious. Come on, guys. Come on. All right. Yelan is not as free to play friendly. I would really say the second most free to play friendly unit is Kokomi. Yeah, you guys are right. Kuki is also fairly free to play friendly. Yeah, Kuki is like the core of a lot of hybrid. What are you doing? Eating garbage again? Bad girl. No eating garbage. No. You will not be a Eula main here. Okay? We don't eat garbage. Here. Go play with your Nilou. Anyways. What were we talking about? Oh, wait. Yeah, we were talking about Kokomi, Raiden Shogun. Right. So when it comes to efficiency, these two characters are at the top. And then you look at just look at Dendro, look at Sumeru. Just compare Inazuma's roster now to Sumeru roster. And tell me that was not a deliberate business decision to help newer players keep up with the people who've been playing the game for 2 years. Because not only do new players have to pull for characters, they also have to have time to farm for artifacts, right? So to make sure newer players don't feel left behind, they made Dendro a meta where very cheap. You don't really even need a lot of priority on stats. Just have some EM and just let the reaction do the rest of the work. Right, so a lot of power has now been leveraged back into the characters' kits and in-game mechanics, as opposed to farming for stats to optimize the characters. Right. Lisa, Dendro, MC, Barbara, Collie is a hyper bloom team with all free units can clear all content. Yeah, so the main reason why HoYoverse did this, like, you guys think that was an accident? Right? Like, really, the HoYoverse has come in and be like, oh my god, we're going to develop this cool new element with all these reaction systems, and we're going to make it so damn free-to-play friendly that we're going to get them, like, free characters are going to be beating the game. Eyes closed, no questions asked. No, it wasn't like by chance that this happened, right? So HoYoverse deliberately wanted to create Dendro so free-to-plays can keep up with the game. Can we agree on that? If we can, then by that assumption, right? By that assumption, HoYoverse is basically telling us, or basically, I mean, yeah, they're basically telling us through their action is that we know what our players are like. We know that the older players are more than okay to continue farming for artifacts, primo gems, to summon new characters. Like, isn't it funny how nobody really complained, right? Think about it for a second. When Dendro came out, it pretty much made older ways to play the game incredibly inefficient by modern standards. Yet nobody has a problem with that. Why is that? Well, first and foremost is because everybody can benefit from it, right? We all can benefit from the Dendro meta. Dendro meta uplifted a lot of, characters out of the realms of unplayability. I mean, not unplayable, but it's just uncomfortable to play. These characters didn't feel like they had a purpose. Kaching, Yaibiko, right? These characters, to a certain degree, even reintegrated certain old characters into modern day metas, like what's their name? Ganyu Mouth had a slight facelift and opened up potentials to other cross-play synergies, like Electro Hydro being on a team is not just super conduct. Now they can synergize with Dendro and have like Hyper Bloom. These it's beautiful what Dendro was able to do, and even though it gave newer players a much bigger advantage to playing the game, older players don't have a single problem with this because, first and foremost, there's no PvP, there's no competitions. It doesn't mean that stuff they've invested in is wasted. So this is why it's very important for HoYoverse to allow older metas to exist into newer meta space. Just because Hyper Bloom right now is so damn good, so efficient, so powerful, doesn't mean Vaporize is unplayable. Doesn't mean Freeze is unplayable. Doesn't mean mono teams are unplayable. They all coexist at the same time. It's just maybe if you want to be strictly mathematical and analytical, Hyper Bloom is more efficient. You can get more for less. However, I'm willing to argue that the ceiling of Hyper Bloom is oftentimes shorter than the ceiling of some of the old meta comps, right? Vaporize, mono teams, when you really invest those teams into like the stratosphere, I'm talking like you get a small loan from the bank, those teams can still just absolutely pound content into the ground. So for whales, for people who want to spend like thousands of dollars a month on the game, they always have an avenue to invest into. So that's very important. Always keeping the high rollers options open and available, right? Sure, you can always just play Hyper Bloom to beat the game, but at the same time, but how are you going to ball out in the game, It's also a very important question for them to answer. So I hope through this I was able to highlight to you guys like the importance of leaving older meta available even within newer meta changes. All right, and this is one of the reasons why like Zhao mains are still like, you know, well, they are lamenting, but they're still very much alive and kicking. Marcus Bullock says, give me a bow user that can build constructs, right? You mean constructs like Geo. That would be cool. When it comes to Geo constructs, I think the concept was very interesting when it was first revealed to us, but they kind of dropped the ball. You guys know what I'm saying? I think there's so many different teams at Hoyoverse and designers, people who come up with these concepts for characters that get greenlit, but like it was a one-off thing. The people who came up with these ideas, they're like, oh my god, wouldn't this be cool? Yes, it would be cool. They made it. Wow, look at how cool that is, and then they forgot about it. That's a problem, right? They only it's like have you guys ever had those moments where you're thinking of like a fictional story and then you're like, oh, this would be so cool, and then they like fight and then, oh, and then the mountains like being shattered, the earth splits open, and it's all like, and then their fight like sends earthquakes around the world, and then after you finish daydreaming, you finish that piece of fiction, and then you're like, okay, cool, let's focus back on class again. But that's a fleeting thought. That moment was cool. That imagination was cool. But what happens is, if you don't develop that, if you just isolate that as a one-off thing, it doesn't hold itself in the grand scheme of things. I don't know if you guys ever have those daydreams. Like you just like come up with like insane scenarios of certain like even anime characters like fighting each other or just whatever the hell like stuff happening. But they exist in that one time frame and they never get developed. True like pieces of content needs to have continuous development, right? So this is the thing. I think Hoyoverse, and there's a lot of developers in Hoyoverse, initially came up with very cool and interesting concepts, and they were like, oh my god, this would be so cool, we need to make this, you know, into a playable character. And then once it became a playable character, it kind of just like the daydream, they just forgot about it. They never went back, developed it. And a lot of these characters kits really do need more development and synergies into future metas to work. A great, like, that's why we were talking about the geo construct. I think there needs to be more geo constructs in the game. Like there needs to be more variety of geo constructs that have different effects that can synergize with Zhongli. Zhongli's pillars are like the centerpiece of the geo, like what do you call that? Geo oscillations or whatever the hell they pulsate, right? That's like the core concept, but yet we don't have enough constructs to work with, and there is such a hard limitation on constructs that aspect of the game is just completely left in archaic times. We need to develop older stuff as opposed to keep coming up with this new stuff. Like Super Bloom is cool with Nilou, but I really hope they find a way to develop that into something more exciting. More geo construct that doesn't break easily and like increase the limit of geo constructs. That's also another thing. I think geo constructs are such a like what is it right now? 3? I think they can have a total of 3 constructs, which I'm not a big fan of that. I just think like maybe increase it to 5, 6, maybe even 7 different geo constructs, and you can really then take off with geo characters. They can be incredibly fun and satisfying to play through a passive way to deal damage through constructs. Constructs failed. Easily destroyed. Enemies move doesn't spawn correctly on uneven ground. Yeah, I think construct is a huge like Like it had so much potential. I think Constructs was one of the things I was most excited about when they introduced it into the game, and it completely just flopped. Kaisil or Chisil or Chisel says they have crystallized, perhaps mix in the constructs and a shadow type interaction through crystallize. That could be interesting, right? Like this is the thing that I think it could be also a little bit frustrating for players, is that you can see Hoyoverse has a lot of the pieces already in place. They just don't want to spend the time to develop them. Or at least right now, they don't want to spend the time developing them, which really sucks, right? It really sucks for people who are sitting on the side. They're huge Geo fans, and they're like, man, I really wish Geo could just take off and be developed into something more than like a defensive focused element or a defense focused element. Even like think about Ito, right? Ito scales off of defense. Like what? I mean, don't get me wrong, I have no problems with characters scaling off of defense, attack, HP, EM, energy, regen, right? Their height, the color of their hair, the pigmentation of their skin. I have no problems. You can scale characters however the hell you want. But it's very disingenuous of Hoyoverse to have, like, to make people wait essentially 2-3 years to see certain metas come to fruition, to step into the spotlight. And you guys might be like, Walrus, aren't you demanding a little too much from a company who, you know, has this title they're working on and they've been giving us content every single patch? Right, this is the thing. That's why I don't really want to sound like I'm complaining about a lack of content or like meta or ways to play the game. I think Genshin Impact is one of the more forgiving games when it comes to wanting to play it in many different ways. But I'm just saying, right, there's a lot of opportunity that's essentially being left on the table here for Hoyoverse to continue developing their game into something great. If it's not great already, I think it's a great game, into something better. Marcus Bullock is not every patch is content though. Yeah, that's true, right? So basically, we have patches in between, really great patches in between. We have filler patches, like currently the one we're on right now. That's just meant to give us time to wind down, and it's also meant to give Hoyoverse some time to catch up with the contents, right? Like, and also rushing content for them is very dangerous, because if they continue to rush content, what if they end up releasing a character that they can't really make adjustments to? Right? So, are you going to predict the new meta? Well, this is what I was thinking about, right? When Fontaine comes out, is there going to be a new meta, or is there going to be a revisit to the old meta? Think about it like this. Vaporize, Superconduct, no, Vaporize, Electrocharge, Freeze, Hyperbloom. These are all like hydrocentric metas, right? So instead of saying that when Fontaine rolls around, we're going to, let's say, have a new meta centered around Hydro or whatever, is it not possible that they're just going to go back and revisit old metas and flesh them out a little more? But if we do that, then Geo really doesn't have a chance anymore now, does it? So I think at different points in the game, at different points in the game's development, Hoyoverse will have to pick and choose when to exercise what type of, you know, focus for meta. For example, we still have the region of Hydro, Pyro, and I believe Cryo, right? We have 3 more regions. So expect, and surprisingly, Pyro and Cryo are, in my opinion, slightly underdeveloped elements. In my opinion. What do you guys think? What do you guys think is the, apart from Geo now, right? Let's just forget about Geo. Apart from Geo, which element do you think is the most underdeveloped and underutilized in terms of potential? Now remember, in terms of their potential. So we got physical element, that is true. we got Hydro. I mean, Hydro, I think, has met up to its potential mostly. Look at how, like, Hydro doesn't, what am I saying? There hasn't been a single iteration of the Abyss where Hydro hasn't been like a very important aspect of it, of the meta space. So Hydro actually has been very prevalent. Pyro, Cryo. Pyro, yep, Pyro. Some people say Pyro seems fine to me. Pyro is dookie right now. Hydro is too good. Melt, physical, Pyro, Cryo. Yeah. So it like, my point here is that Pyro definitely feels like an element that when the game first came out, people saw its potential for 2 times damage or something like that. Was it 2 or 2.5? People saw the potential for damage and they all flocked to it, and then they really went hard on these characters. And then nowadays you look at Pyro, I feel like there's a huge chunk of it that's been left out of the game on purpose. Now, I don't know if it's because HoYoverse is reserving Pyro for Natlin, or that Pyro itself is just a difficult thing for HoYoverse to wrap their head around. Right? Because I don't know if HoYoverse has the answer for Pyro. Remember, in past streams, I've asked you guys in chat, right? Can you guys give us a solution to the problem of Pyro? And here's the problem for you guys. And I can ask you guys this every single live stream until we see like a legitimate answer, which is, how are you going to solve the problem of creating strong Pyro characters that are melt focused and melt exclusive? Right? Melt exclusive, not so. Let me ask you guys right now, how can you create a Pyro character that is only played for melt and not vaporize? How are you going to answer that question? And before you guys ask, why is it even important to answer this question? The reason it's important is, when it comes to business and making money, you don't want one product to solve 2 issues, right? Why does Apple have the MacBook Pro and then the iPad Pro, and then have the MacBook and then the MacBook Air and then just the MacBook Basic? Oh no, I already said MacBook. MacBook Air, and then the Apple Watch, Apple goggles, right? Like, what? Why do you need all these? Like, they even have like, and then the iPhone, when you can have cellular in your iPad. Why do you have like, right? The whole point here is you need different pieces in the same ecosystem that do different jobs. Having a Pyro character that is also vaporize and melt perfect is bad for business. So that's why I'm asking you guys, how are we going to solve this problem? How can you develop a Pyro character that is melt exclusive and not really playable in vaporized teams? Nothing says, you're not making sense. You're confusing business with unique characters. No. These things, like, this is the thing. If you have a character that comes out that can be played in both vaporize and melt flawlessly, it works perfectly in both, then how is HoYoverse going to sell you a melt character? Why would they sell you one character when they can sell you 2 characters? Right? Why would they do that? If they can make $100 from you, why would they only make $50 from you? You see, that's the question, right? Why doesn't Apple just make one MacBook product that encompasses, you know, the purpose of all these other features? Why do they need all these other different, like, models of the same product, right? Oh, one's for high-end users, one's for middle users, one for like casual users. And let me tell you, the distinction between each MacBook is nowhere as complex as the distinction between, let's say, like a Pyro character that is focused on vaporize and a Pyro character that is focused on melt. These are very 2 distinctively different characters that have entirely different purpose of existing in the game. Angel says all you have to do is make them like Nilou and make it like can melt when the party has no hydro characters. But the thing is, you see, Angel, if you know, like if you observe the Genshin community, you know, as long as this character can apply good enough pyro, they're gonna play it in Vaporize. As long as this character can have good and consistent, like they'll be like, oh, I don't care about melt, I'll keep playing Vaporize, right? Like, so the condition of having saying like, oh, this character can melt when the party has no hydro characters, it was like, then I guess I just won't melt. I'll just not melt. I'll play Vaporize. And then you have to start putting more restrictions on it, right? You got to put more and more and more and more restrictions on this character until no matter what you do, this character sucks ass in Vaporize. But then how are you going to incentivize melt? Walrus, are you talking about forward melt or reverse melt? Both. Any type of melt, right? I think forward melt could have ways, ways you can design around forward melt, and there are ways you can design about around reverse melt. But the thing is, the biggest problem I think for Hoyoverse that they have yet to solve is how we're gonna make a melt pyro character that people won't play in Vaporize. How can we make a melt exclusive pyro character? See, I don't know if they have the answer already and is just refusing to release it to us, or they're waiting for Natlin. Sad Wagon says, it's like how Bennett was so good back then and no one was giving a chance to other characters. A character cannot be too good. Yeah. That's exactly my point. Because if they're too good, nobody else, like I guess most meta players would not choose anything but the best. Everybody wants the best for their account, right? Not okay. I keep saying everybody, but what I mean, like the vast majority of players are looking for the best. Artsy Spark says melt damage increased by 50%, Vaporize decreased by 70%. That's one way to do it, but you see, again, then that becomes a little too on your nose, right? That's not really like good game design by Hoyoverse standards, because that's basically them admitting defeat, saying like, you know what, we can't figure it out, so we're just gonna straight up gash Vaporize damage for this character. Like that's what we're gonna do. That's our solution. So in that sense, you could solve that problem, but it's very obvious to the player base that you're just at a loss when it comes to designing the game. People are playing Nilou with Vape. Yeah, you see, this is my point. They'll play any character with Vape because Vape is widely regarded as the best and most efficient way to deal damage, like traditionally, right? And that's why people fall into this spot being like, oh my god, we gotta make them work with melt or else this character sucks. That's a problem. Dark Walker says, Genshin's original programmers never considered the designers wanting reaction segregated character. That's why Dia is wonky. Exactly, right? This is a prime example of them tacking on stuff as they go. They never planned for it. They used to think Vaporize, cool, melt, cool, superconduct, cool, freeze, amazing, right? Crystallize, ooh, perfect. They used to think like, okay, this system is gonna work. It's gonna work, and oh yeah, then give it like 2 years. We're gonna release a new element that's gonna throw things up and kind of mix things into like everything and make it even more complex and interesting for the players. How could they have ever known the game was going to develop in the direction it did? How? There is no way they could have anticipated this. The only way they could have done this is make a good-ish fundamental reaction system and then go from there. Continue to develop it. They can develop this into so many different ways. There could, like I keep saying in the past, there could be super vaporized, there could be super melt, there could be super crystallized, super swirl. like basically what they did with Nilu, they can do with every single role playstyle niche in the game. Right? So this is the thing. And all in the meanwhile, they cannot power creep. Which is weird. Which is absolutely weird to me, because how are you going to make a game that is exciting for players to continue to play and come back to every day, every patch, without characters getting stronger, right? But surprisingly, the enemies have gotten stronger, the characters have stayed relatively the same, the ceiling of damage hasn't really moved much, yet the monsters, the health pool, continues to increase. Isn't that interesting? You guys don't get to deal more damage, yet the enemies gets more and more tanky. Why is that? It's because over time, you get better artifacts, right? Over time, you get maybe better weapons for your characters, you get constellations for your characters, or your characters were always just strong. If you pulled Hu Tao C1 back in the day in like what, 1.2 or 1.3, you were chilling. You were always chilling. And the game essentially is trying to play catch up to the speed of player development, right? So it's like, if you just look at Genshin and the way they've continued to develop game, it's actually pretty interesting. Ving D says over time they will have to buff us all again somehow. And let me tell you, if that day ever comes, it's going to be through likely another grindy system. Let's say, Vindy, a new slot opens up. Okay, let me go into my characters here. Let me show you guys. Let's say in the future, instead of attributes, weapon, artifacts, constellations, talent, let's say below artifacts, there is like a thing called, I don't know, sigils, right? Oh, let me turn off chat. Let's say below artifact, there's a new slot that you can equip certain things on your characters, and it's called sigils. Oh, and how are you going to farm sigils? Well, it's going to be through this new thing, right? It's going to be through this new Spiral Abyss-like content, which you can only gain access to it if your character is a level 90 with talents level 10, 10, 10. So if your character is not talent level 10, 10, and 10, sitting at level 90, you cannot equip, this character cannot equip a sigil, right? And these sigils are obtained through like bi-monthly rotations in like a new Spiral Abyss-esque like dungeon crawler content, right? So you go in, it's like a dungeon that they've designed for this iteration, and then you got to bring in characters, and certain characters maybe gets a buff over certain other characters, kind of like the Spiral Abyss. They balance it, and then the sigil that it drops can have like really different effects to blah blah blah. And then like the whole point is you need this sigil for characters to deal more damage to like a certain, maybe Abyss 13 they release it, or whatever the hell they want to do with the game. Yeah, I can totally see like Genshin getting more difficult in time if they want to increase the ceiling of stuff, right? They can do that. They can pull something like that. They can make you get to level 100. They can open up like the 7th Ascension, right? They can look up the 7th Ascension. It's called like Awakening, and then you get your characters to a level 100, and then once you get your characters to level 100, something happens or whatever, or like the stat or the EXP it costs to go from level 90 to 100 is like twice the EXP it took to get to level 1 to 90, and the cost of material is absolutely insane. But if you can get to level 100, the character is awakened or something like that, and then you get some additional, and this is all free to play accessible. You just need to grind. You need to go grind and grind and grind. And I guarantee you, if a system existed like that in this game, people will play the ever-living daylights out of it just to get their favorite waifus to level 100 awakened. It's like a lot of gacha games have done this in the past. It wouldn't be anything new. It's just right now there's no need for that kind of power at all. Doesn't the talent say that level 15 is the max level? Exactly. You can get talents level 15, but you need constellation 6 to do it. Well, technically, you only need constellation 3 and 5 to do it. But talent levels were programmed to be able to get to level 12, if I remember correctly. Right? You can basically you can get to talent level 12, and then the last 3 are from constellations. But then wait a minute, it doesn't have a normal attack buff. Wait, chat. There's a flaw in here. Talent goes to level 15, you get 3 for your elemental skill and 3 for your burst skill. What about your normal charge attack? What about your primary attack? This yet feels like another flawed aspect of the system, in my opinion. This feels weird. Yeah, like a lot of characters don't really use this as well, right? A lot of characters rely mostly on elemental skill, burst skill. Some characters have all their talents weaved together really well, which is interesting. Tech the Virus Wars, they would never make the game that grindy. Well, they wouldn't, not now. I think maybe post Shiznaya, if the game, because think about it, what are they going to do for the game post Shiznaya? Oh, the game's just done. They're going to close down the servers. Well, Genshin's done. Post Shiznaya's over. We got Kanria done. Right, Shiznaya, Kanria, closing the service. What are they going to do after that? Right? So it just makes you wonder, how much of it is planned, how much of it is just them designing and making changes as they go, and how many shot callers are there in Hoyoverse? No, really, how many people are on the development team making decisions for big decisions for the game? And when they greenlight characters, how much thought is going into these characters' future? Right? Is Alhaitham going to still have any relevancy in the game 3 years from now? What about Nahida? What about Zhongli? Right? Eula, okay, right now they're putting in some efforts with through Mika to maybe hopefully make Eula feel a little better. But that's after 2 years. Zhao also didn't get his a dedicated Anemo buffer until 2.5 years. Wait, is it 2.5 years? No. No, 2 years. 2 years, roughly 2 years. Yeah, Zhao didn't get his buff until 2 years later. Yaimiko waited a whole 6 months before the purpose of her existence was revealed to us. Was, oh my god, she was supposed to be an off-field electro applicator for Dendro teams. Right? Klee is still waiting. When is this character, right? When is this character going to get some love and attention here? Maybe when Alice comes out, Klee suddenly becomes meta. That's assuming if Alice is actually a playable character. She might not be, but I'm just saying. Who's making these decisions? Who's making characters at Hoyoverse headquarters and is you know what? Let's just shelf this character for the next 2-3 years until we know what we want to do with them. But then there are other characters that came out like Tartaglia that has never ever once became irrelevant. So, and how much influence, my question is, how much influence do these non-game developers, business people, marketers and stuff like that, executives, how much influence do they have over the design of Genshin characters? I don't have Dia, okay? I don't have Dia. Let's go. I don't know if I can click on her. I think I could. Yeah. I don't have Dia. But my question currently right now is how much of Dia, what Dia turned out to be, is a decision from the dev team, and how much of it is a decision from the marketing and corporate team? Right? Tech the Virus says, Walrus, they can just make a Genshin 2, which would be in a new world other than Teyvat. But my question is, are they going to start from scratch making another IP? Or they're going to just transfer over all the data and call it Genshin 2? So it's still Genshin. Do our accounts transfer over to Genshin 2? Like Overwatch transferred all our accounts into Overwatch 2. Or I guess Overwatch 2 is still just Overwatch, if you guys know what the game I'm talking about. So then, if they are not going to transfer over people's accounts, let me ask you this. How many of you guys would start Genshin 2 from scratch, losing all your progress, and starting over again? I'm just saying, be real with yourself, right? How many players, like, so think about it. How many players would Hoyoverse lose by starting an entirely new account, like IP? So yeah, most, like, I would say the vast majority of people playing the game right now would not start over from scratch playing a new game, even though it has all the characters they know. There's like, you know, like all, like, there's references to Eula, there's references to like blah blah blah, all these characters, Dia, there's like Sino, Nilu, Nahida references. Yet, right, you have none of them. You gotta start from scratch again. How many people are willing to do that? I would say not too many. Then why are they making new IPs? Techie, you must know this. They're making new IPs to dominate new niches in the gaming market. What is Honkai Star Rail? Another Genshin clone? No, that's a turn-based RPG, right? What is Zenless Zone Zero? Another Genshin clone? No. And they are just dominating. It's like, why does League of Legends make team fight tactics? Why did League of Legends make Valorant? What the hell were they thinking, right? Like, oh, what? It's to leverage their current popularity, strike the iron when it's hot. In Chinese, there's a saying called 趁热打铁, which is like, when the iron is hot, strike that shit, baby. Strike that shit. That's what Hoyoverse is doing. That's what a lot of these big mega corporations do. When they are hot, they're on a hot streak, keep doing more. Don't stop. Keep pumping out. Keep trying to enter into new markets. Just like, go hard, go fast, dominate into as many markets as you possibly can. Leverage your popularity, leverage your current player base in Genshin Impact to promote, right? That's all it is. Zenless Zone Zero, for example, is very similar to Genshin with party-based PvE game with many units. Yeah, because they found a working formula. The way to play the game could be similar, right? The way like certain characters synergize with each other, having maybe a reaction or a combo system, whatever the hell they want to call it in like different games. I'm sure there's going to be reaction systems in other games. They just don't call it reactions. They call it some other stuff, right? Like combustion, like whatever. It's just, there's some sort of synergies between characters, like fast-paced, like flashy combat styles with anime-esque characters. That's a working formula. But the purpose of the game doesn't have to be the same. They don't have, like, Honkai shares the same IP, right? It's Honkai Impact, Honkai Star Rail. They share similar IPs with each other. I mean, they share the same IP, so you can see like different characters. I can see them making a new Genshin game, like a new, like, let's say a MMORPG Genshin game, right? I can see that. I can see what do companies do when they make an MMORPG of their title? They always title it something like Genshin Online or something like that, like some weird title like that. Be like, oh, Like, take your Genshin adventures into the multiplayer level. Be able to be on the same map with your friends. Start like open guilds. Like, I wouldn't doubt it that in the beginning, HoYoverse was planning to make Genshin into like a guild, like having guild systems and thinking of a multiplayer potential until they realized, wait a minute, Genshin already made it. Like, Genshin made it. Oh, sorry, I need to have chat on screen. Whoa, okay, there we go. Genshin already made it, so they didn't need to leverage any more like traditional systems to bait us, right? So then it's like we're just gonna leverage the IP into like a new format of game, like a Genshin Online, right? Like, oh, it's a true MMO experience. Have you ever wished that Genshin Impact was an MMORPG? And that's maybe that's what they'll do. But I can see a lot, like there's no way it's going to live up to the potential that Genshin has. Think about it like this, right? I think the success of Genshin is maybe like 30-40% because they had a good product. 50% of is luck. The fact Genshin blew up has so much luck factor to it that I don't think HoYoverse, to be quite honest with you, can replicate this ever again. I think Genshin may be the biggest title in HoYoverse's repertoire, at least for a very, very long time. Yeah. If you say that a game like Genshin Impact getting released today, getting to the level of success Genshin had in 2020, I don't think it's possible. Yeah, the HoYoverse RNG was strong in COVID times. This is a lot of people wanted something to do, and then they found something to do collectively, and it was a huge internet phenomenon, right? In the late 2020s, early 2021, a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon, and a lot of people kind of got stuck here with the sunk cost fallacy, being like, oh my god, I spent like 2 years of my life playing this game, and I've spent like thousands of dollars. I can't quit now. I can't quit. But most of these people wouldn't really do that again. Like, I feel like for a lot of people, the experience Genshin has to offer is very much like a one-time thing. You do it once, you experience it, okay, it's like gacha games is what it's all about. And oftentimes it'll turn people away from it. It's like, you know what, if it wasn't for the fact that I was so caught up on the fact that I spent so much time and money on this game, that I would have quit. JP says there's still plenty of content to be made with Genshin, being that Teyvat is only a fraction of its world. Yeah, the way it's set up, they're saying like we're travelers, right? The twins are travelers. So basically, that means they've traveled many different worlds. And Teyvat is only one of those worlds. Like, if HoYoverse want to, they can easily take the twins and just turn them into an ever-traveling pair of mystical characters. And Teyvat is only but the first stop of our Genshin journey. That could happen. They can travel to a different world. But how many people are going to really stay on board with meeting new people, meeting new characters, right? All this stuff in new worlds, new adventures, blah, blah, blah. Start from scratch. They have to set up the story again, set up the stakes. Oh, what happened? Oh, this time, they're one of the twins had their memories erased or something bullshit like that. Like, how many of this like trope are we going to stick around for? Or is it not? Like, how much of the players that are still playing Genshin are still playing because they spend way too much time and money, as opposed to the game actually being interesting and fun and engaging? Now that's a question that only you can answer and not me, right? And I've said this in the past, and I'm not scared to say this in public, is that I don't think I would still be playing this game if I hadn't met you guys. If I don't have what we have right now every day, having people to talk to, having people to give feedback, to my thoughts on the game, having like people to chat with like this, sitting here twice a week, 2 hours at a time, chatting with people about the game, I don't think I would have made it. The game certainly doesn't have enough pull for me to stay consistent. I love talking about the games I play. I love discussing, you know, intricate details of very mundane things about the game at times to people who care about this stuff. And the internet is a great place to find others who share that interest with you. And without it, I don't think the game would be as interesting, because the gameplay is just not it. When it comes to a certain point, there's a lack of reason to do certain things. But we never run out of things to talk about. Marcus Bullock says the animation is cool, but yeah, like the quality of the game is great. The music is great. Like it's a well polished game. It looks beautiful. It sounds wonderful, and I can really get lost in the ambience of Genshin Impact. But when it comes to gameplay, it's not that. But it's not that engaging when it comes to like a game that you play day in, day out, right? What is that? Oh, what is that? Jabba, are you a Eula main? Oh, you're a Dia main? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, we have a Dia main in the household. I think we're gonna have to re-educate you, Jabba. Tribute of Silence says, bro, you sneeze like me for real, for real. My sneeze is my sneeze changes every now and then. No Christ, No Life says it's less of a game and more of an interactive story. I think that's a great way to put it. I think Genshin leveraged so much into the lore and your connection to these characters, as opposed to just playing the game, right? Like the meta, like like sure, it's cool to beat up on some hillachurls, but how many people really can say they get excited to come online to beat up hillachurls every single day? Right? How many of you guys can be like, I can't wait to get off work, go home, and slap some hillachurls around, man? I mean, that's what it's all about, baby. Hurting the hillachurls. I don't know. I think that's just not it. Tech Devices Walrus is really the story quests that are carrying the game for me, and it has to be, right? You have to care about the characters. As weird as it sounds, you have to really want to know more about Hu Tao, want to know more about Yelan, want to like it's like reading a book. If you don't care about the plot, you don't care about the characters, you don't care about, like, you don't even want to flip the page, why are you still reading the book? Bench Gamers is not gonna lie, doing my commissions give me comfort, and if that includes killing hillies, I'm fine with that. Yeah, I think it's comfort in a pattern, right? It's what you've been doing, depending on how long you've played the game and how consistent you are with you know, clearing the content. It's what you've been doing day in, day out for the last year or two for some people. Of course, you're gonna find that to be comfortable because it's something you've built into your everyday life. And in more ways than one, that's what HoYoverse designed the game to be. To some people, not logging on and doing their commission at this point could feel very, very uncomfortable, borderline anxiety inducing. They're like, oh my god, I haven't done my Genshin commissions. I have to do it. No, like, oh, but I'm already in bed. I brushed my teeth. I'm getting ready for bed. I don't want to open my phone, right? Or I don't want to go over to my computer. Oh, but it only takes 10 minutes. It doesn't take that long. I guess I'll just go do it. Oh, let's do the commissions. That's the level of like that's how much Hoyoverse wants you to care. Not enough to be like your life centers around it, but not little enough to have you feel like it's okay to not to do them. That's the perfect sweet spot. Because if your life is centered around Genshin, eventually there will come a point where people realize this, it's an actual problem, and they'll try to fix that problem. But if it never gets big enough to become a problem, but it's never small enough to become insignificant, then it sits in this gray area where it constantly plagues your mind and daily life, but it only asks for like 10-15 minutes of your day every day, right? That's all it's asking for. And it's a very smart move from Hoyoverse's side in that they don't make you feel like, Jabba, what are you doing? Oh, you were looking for the ant. There you go. Oh, you. Oh, good girl. Oh, good girl, good girl. Okay, good girl. Okay. Here we go. You want to say hi to chat? Okay, come here. Come on, Jabba. Good girl. Yes. Oh, I'm not mad. Oh. Good girl. Hello. You were just playing with your aunt. Oh, good girl. Good girl. Yes. Why are you looking at mommy? Why are you looking at mommy? Papa, hello. Oh, hello. Oh, yes. Oh, good girl. Oh. It's a big cat, right? I think Jabba might have the Guinness World of Records for largest cat in the world. A good girl. Very good girl. Okay, why don't you go play with your aunt? Oh. Why don't you go play with your aunt? Okay. Okay. Bench Gamers is not there. Fatter cats, you gotta weigh them. Damn, you might be right. Jabba is, I think, what, 55 pounds? 55 pounds. I think you got scammed, Walrus. Your cat is weird. I thought so too, until just the day before yesterday. Believe it or not, I think I heard Jabba meow for the first time. So I think I'm good. Chisel says, I heard they don't keep the record for biggest cat anymore because people kept overfeeding their cats to try and get the record. Oh, that sucks. And people are assholes. I mean, I wonder how Hoyoverse intends to solve the smartphone memory problem in the future. New places to take out a lot of memory. That's a good question. Do you guys think smartphone memory capacity is going to increase faster, or Hoyoverse is going to release content faster? content that demands that kind of. Because think about it, how much off the top of your heads, who knows how much memory Genshin takes up right now on the phone? How many gigabytes right now is it in the phone? To 20, 30, 26, 21. I'm getting all sorts of numbers here. Maybe 60? Bro, I think you got a different game there, buddy. Wait, are you sure you're no, it's on the mobile, not on PC. If somebody got 60 gigabytes, actually I have my I got my phone here, but I don't think I updated my game on my phone in a while here, so it's not accurate. But I can always go to the App Store. I think they have to tell you how big the game is in the App Store, right? They have to. Let's see. 3.8? No, that can't be right. What? Oh no, it's 3.8 gigabytes to download the first bit, and then in game they have a bunch more to download. So it's like, yeah, it's not 3.8. It's like it's 3.8 for the base launch and stuff like that. And inside the thing, they make you download a bunch more stuff. Yeah, 3.8 just for the installer. 22.52. I think that's very easily, like you can handle that easily in even like very base models of phones nowadays. Are there still phones that are 64 gigabytes? I'm sure there are, right? There has to be phones that the base model is 64 gigabytes. I think even 64 gigabytes, but you're not getting 64. I think by the time you get it in your hand, it's like what, 55 gigabytes? So almost half. Almost half of it is yeah. Almost half of it is gonna be just for Genshin Impact. Animation stations that you can remove 5 gigs of past content. I remember you can like setting, language, like look, the voice files are also actually huge, so you can delete some, you can like keep it at certain voice files. There are ways to do it. And then yeah, Techie was also saying they're going to remove like older regions. So let's say maybe in the future you can't teleport to Mondstadt until like for example, you can come in the game, you can finish Mondstadt, finish Inazuma, and then you can uninstall them from your game. So then like the teleporters are grayed out, you can't teleport it, and then every time you click it, it asks a prompt, oh, you currently don't have the files for Mondstadt, would you like to install them? You can install them and go to Mondstadt, stuff like that, right? Maybe you could do that, and that could save you like a ton, like tons on gigabytes. Tons on gigabytes on storage. The HKs that got the 256 iPhone just for Genshin. I mean, 256, if you're using the phone for maybe like 5-6 years, I think 256 will be fine. Yep. I think in the future, Genshin Impact, yeah, it's gonna get big. By the time we get to what's that, Shiznaya, we're probably looking at 30 plus gigabytes, maybe like almost 40 gigabytes on the phone, which is still doable for people who have like slightly higher models. And I'm sure Hoyoverse will have quality of life updates. JM watches, I got the Red Magic 8 Pro that has the 512 gigabytes of space, so I'm golden. Did you use my... Actually, I don't think I have a code. But did you see it? Did you check out the video I made on the the Red Magic 8 Pro? How is it? It's a new phone, right? You got it like a month ago. I think it only started selling a month ago. Mondstadt used to be the best for dailies, but then I did the story quest and it added dailies. I still do dailies in Mondstadt, if you guys noticed. I think Mondstadt has like the easiest dailies. It takes me like 5 minutes to do them all. Then says, man, it's amazing. Constant 6 with Genshin is crazy. Yeah. That phone was a beast. I still have it over there. Oh, haven't used it in a little bit because I don't play a lot of games on my mobile phone. Not a lot. But I have it as like a second phone. So now before we finish up the stream here, let's finally talk about Fontaine. Now this is just theory, right? Because Fontaine has a lot of emphasis on Hydro, but remember, just because they have an emphasis on Hydro, it doesn't mean that it's going to have a lot of Hydro characters. The only character that comes out in Fontaine that will have a huge impact on Hydro as an element is going to be the Archon. Think about it like this. How many Electro characters from Inazuma came out that has been like revolutionizing Electro? Apart, like we have Kuki Shinobu, Raiden Shogun, and Yaimiko. While Kuki is great in Hyperloom and Yaimiko has found a place in also like Electro-centric Dendro teams, Quicken teams, you really don't see like the Raiden Shogun coming out and changing Electro as an element. In fact, Electro didn't really find its purpose in the game until Dendro came out, right? Sarah, yeah, I guess you could say Sarah was also another big, but how many people have Sarah consistently playing in their team, right? Did Raiden Shogun solve issues for Keqing? Did Raiden Shogun solve issues for like Electro off-field? No. Raiden Shogun existed for herself, right? She came out and she made herself really good, and she didn't really give a damn about the other, you know, characters in the Electro category that needed help. So when we think of Fontaine, don't think of Fontaine as like, oh my god, Hydro's gonna get a buff. No. More than likely, they're gonna release the character Hydro Archon, and she is going to be in an insane value in terms of a Hydro character. But what is gonna be her gimmick? What's her gimmick? We all know every single Archon has a gimmick. So what is hers? So that's the question we need to answer, right? Zhongli, shielding. Raiden Shogun, battery. Nahida is EM buffing and Dendro application, which is in of itself is already insane. And then we have Kazuha, the Anemo Archon, which is like, you know, has great CC, can use Viridescence, and you know, like just a great buffer in general, right? So what is the Hydro Archon's gimmick? There has to be like a gimmick to her. You can't just have a Hydro character come out, Archon nonetheless, that does like nothing but apply Hydro and heals you. That's just not it. That's not it. There has to be one of the things I've been thinking about is buffing HP, increasing your max HP. So basically, increasing your max HP, which also gives you like makes, for example, Hu Tao goes from 39,000 to 50,000, right? So, and it buffs your max HP. Basically, it's healing. Basically, it's healing. It's just healing everyone on the team. Each person gets like a percentage HP buff. Yeah, Nilu goes to 100k HP, all these HP scaling characters just like having damage bleeding out of their ass cheeks. They're just going crazy. Right? And also, buff, like, now my question is, so think about it like this, all right? Look. If Hu Tao goes from 39,000 to 50,000, does her current HP also scale up to 50k, or does it stay at 39k? Right? So then it would be 39,317 out of 50,000. Or is it going to be 50,000 out of 50,000? Right? They have to make this stuff clear. Because the reason why this is important is for a character like Hu Tao, who wants her HP below 50%, if her HP suddenly increased to, let's say, 50,000, she only needs one elemental infusion to go below 50%. Oh my goodness, the statue just healed me. Now, of course, it wouldn't be just as simple as buffing HP. I think the Hydro Archon likely will scale off of HP as well herself, and I think she's going to be a great damage facilitator. Walrus says, Tech says Walrus is skills up with all the Hydro resonance, so it would be the latter. So if it's the latter, a character like Hu Tao would still need, I believe, 2 infusions. Name is Nam says, what if the Hydro Archon also tank damage for teammates just like Dia, but better? I don't think they'll release another character that does that, because think about it like this. They want to leverage the strength of Hydro as much as they can. What is the strength of Hydro? Hydro's strength is the fact that it works with almost every single element. In fact, there is a reaction with every single element, right? Starting from Vaporize, Freeze, Electrocharge. Why do I keep saying? Oh wait. Oh yeah, Electrocharge. I thought I said Superconduct. Let's Vaporize, Freeze, Electrocharge, Bloom, Hyper Bloom by extension of that, right? And then we also have Swirl, Crystallize, right? 6. We got 6 different we have 6 different reactions. Hydro is one of the few elements that have a reactions with every single element. I think Electro has it, Pyro has it, Hydro has it. Right? That's it. Pyro, Electro, and Hydro. These are the only 3 elements that have a reaction to all the elements. So leveraging Hydro, and out of the 3, Hydro is by far the most prevalent and effective one. So for the Hydro Archon, it would be a big missed opportunity if Holyverse doesn't leverage what makes Hydro strong and unique to its peers, and that is its potential in its synergies with other elements. So I would imagine the Hydro Archon to be like a Yelan. Like, the Hydro Archon should be able to do what Yelan does, in my opinion. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys think we need another character similar to Yelan? Or should a Hydro Archon be more akin to Kokomi? Maybe she's not damage oriented. Maybe she's just a buffer and an applicator. She's kind of like Kokomi. But I think Hydro application has to be somewhat consistent in her kit. What if they release forward vape focused characters in Fontaine? That could be cool. Yeah, that could be very cool. But and they have them scale off of what, like HP? So then what would the composition look like? You would have Zhangling. Would you not? Or would you need a new Pyro character? Because then you need to first apply Hydro, right? And you need to proc it with Pyro characters. So the Hydro goes first. Forward vape means Hydro goes first, right? Forward vape would be pyro first. Okay, so pyro goes first, followed by hydro. But isn't that Hu Tao? So Hu Tao, but Hu Tao is already a forward. That would mean Hu Tao teams are forward vape. No? But that's, you see, that's my question. So Hu Tao is what? Is hydro first, then pyro, right? So Hu Tao's this attack applies hydro, and then her charge attack procs it, right? Is that correct? Right. Okay. So we need a situation where hydro is applied first, then pyro procs it, which currently what Xiangling is probably like the most suitable character for that, no? But then in order for that, you need a hydro character who can apply hydro fast and consistent. And in that scenario, you would have a character like Bennett. You have, let's just say the hydro archon is like a driver on that team or something. The hydro archon synergizes with Xiangling, synergizes with Bennett, synergizes with who? Who's the last character on the team? Nemo or Geodaddy? Yeah, because those are the only ones you have. A Nemo, well, if a Nemo, which one would you swirl? Is it Xiangling's Pyro or is it the Hydro? You can double swirl Hydro and Pyro. I actually haven't really tried to double swirl Hydro Pyro. I've double swirled, I believe, like Hydro and Electro. I've tried it. Pyro and Hydro. It's mostly because when I run those teams, I don't think I usually would run an Anemo character. In all those scenarios, I guess. But now if you guys want to, the thing is, forward melt, would it be a DPS loss? Because then you don't want to run, let's say, Yelan or Xinqiu in that team, no? But like, wouldn't it be ideal to run a Yelan or Xinqiu with the Hydro Archon in theory with the Yelan and with the Xiangling and Bennett? Would that not be ideal? Right? You have an extra layer of damage, and also they also get the double Hydro buff and the HP buff in theory from the Hydro Archon. Then you have a Yelan with juiced out HP buff, double Hydro, and also her burst skill scaling up more to the on-field damage for the character, that like whoever's on field. When you do forward vape, the pyro aura is immediately consumed. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem in of itself. Is that means we need better pyro application extremely fast. But then, yes, there is an ICD, but you need the pyro to be applied fast enough. And Xiangling's pyro, while I think Xiangling's pyro is what the fastest we have right now, fastest, most consistent. So does that mean we need an even faster and more consistent one? but that's immediately a power creep. That character would never get played in forward vape. Maybe forward vape is just like a conceptual thing that works, but it, like, in theory, if there was a character that could be played in forward vape, reverse vape right now just has better options for characters. Right? By that logic, forward vape just would never work because people would just play it with reverse vape because there's no good forward vape characters. Yeah, so then the answer becomes like, we just need better pyro characters, right? We need better pyro characters that can do more things. Which means if forward vape were to ever exist, ironically, it would be in Natlin and not Fontaine. No? Yeah, I guess forward vape has the same issue with melt, is that if a character comes out right now that can play in melt and forward vape, and by extension of that means they can be played in traditional vape, which is reverse vape, then people would just play them in reverse vape because it'll just pump out better results. Right? All in all, it's just, we're back at the same problem, which is like, how are you going to make a character that is exclusive to this playstyle without it being like good in these other playstyles? I don't know. HoYoverse is still working on it, and I don't know if they will ever come up with a solution. While it's very interesting to continue to think about it, I think we need something a little more concrete before we can build off of that, right? Right now, we're just thinking, well, it would be nice if we get a character like this, but then we don't realize the problems and implications of having such a character in the game. Because while in theory it sounds like forward vape is cool, I think after like a week or two, people are going to just go back to the default and people are like, oh, you know what? This character ended up being a huge buff to my Hu Tao team. Not Hu Tao team, like a pyro character that comes out being a huge buff to reverse blah blah blah. Or like you start playing it with or maybe think about it like this. Maybe forward melt is meant to be a single instance of damage, right? That's why characters like Tartaglia, that's why characters like Mona can leverage that better than other, like their burst skills, I mean, can leverage it better because it's supposed to be played for a single instance of damage and not for sustained application damage. That's why reverse, while it has weaker scaling, is more popular in consistent application and reaction synergies, as opposed to the forward one, the traditional 2x one. And that's also why melt is still not developed, is because they need to figure out the right way to design the game around forward and reverse. At least that's what I think, because right, one has a 2x scaling. If the one with 2x scaling has the same way of playing with the 1.5x scaling, then why would you ever play the 1.5x scaling? Then the 1.5x scaling just becomes irrelevant, right? Yes, there is one that has 2x and one that has 1.5, but the 1.5 one is meant to be a consistent output of damage, like reverse melt, reverse melt, reverse melt, reverse melt, whereas the other one is supposed to be a big one-time instance of damage with a 2x multiplier, and you're supposed to stack that like to the best of your abilities, crit fish, whatever, get that one single strike. That's what the 2x was designed for. Maybe. I don't know. I don't work for HoYoverse, but it makes sense to me if that were to be the case. If somebody came and told me like, hey, you know, that was the whole purpose, right? That was why HoYoverse designed it that way. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Sarian says, so 1.5 equal consistent application and two times for single instant nuke damage. Yeah. So that's why we have the 2x scaling. It was meant to be a nuke way of playing the game. name is Nam says you can still make forward vape consistent, just a bit slower than reverse vape. But then are you not losing damage on the 1.5 versus 2 times multipliers? Right, because the whole reason you're playing forward vape is to leverage the 2 times damage, right? But are you taking into account that the fact that you're making it happen slower, then you're losing out on the bonus of this extra 0.5 times damage you have, and you lose it to the fact that you can't proc it as fast. So after, like, if you scale both and you compare it, they're kind of roughly then similar again with each other. Right. So yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it's just a way people want to play the game versus how the game was designed to be played. If you want to play forward melt, if you want to play forward vaporize, you can do it, but the result will still be the same had you just played reverse melt. And that's just kind of coded into the game by HoYoverse, being like, oh, this is what we want, right? We don't want you ever to be able to do what you do with reverse vaporize on forward vaporize and get the same like consistency of application while leveraging that 2 times buff. I don't know if that's a plan. So maybe in theory it's kind of like, oh, what if we can travel faster than light? I mean, we all this like be like faster than light travel, like all this science mumbo jumbo, but maybe, just maybe, it was never meant to be, right? That's just like, like theoretically we can have workarounds, like, oh, but what if we make wormholes in space and like technically we travel faster than light? But you're just making like these, scenarios where you're working off of technicalities as opposed to actualities. So yes, technically you can play forward vaporize, but the result is still the same as if you were to have played reverse vaporize, right? Because maybe forward vape was always meant to be a nuking reaction. Texas International has both child vape, forward vape child Q and reverse vape challenge Q broken. Yeah, and that's why Tartaglia International has been one of the more consistent teams to be used throughout all iterations of the Abyss. It's a very consistent team that is constantly being played by people. C2 Folklore is about to give us a party-wide crit rate, crit damage buff for every point of HP we have stacked on her. And that's the last thing about Folklore that we have to understand is, it would be very, very interesting if they involve some sort of universal scaling off of Folklore's HP. So what I mean by that is, the more HP Folklore has, let's say, instead of crit rate, crit damage, what if she just buffs raw damage output on for your characters, right? That's for all DPS character from now till the end of time, you can it's not like you would love more damage. Crit rate, crit damage is another one that they would like to do. I don't think they can buff attack because that's something that's too unique, surprisingly, in Genshin Impact. So you have to buff either raw damage output, or you have to reduce enemies' resistances, all resistances, or basically is universal debuff or universal buff. That's the only two that really works. So Yelan's passive, yeah, Yelan's passive, but on absolute crack. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I've been thinking a lot about the metas, and I've just come to realize that most things in Genshin has stayed unchanged, and they just tacked on new things. But the old stuff are still all here, right? Like Hu Tao, and sometimes once in a while, even old stuff gets a small boost. Like Hu Tao team got a buff through Yelan, right? And also what's the name? Kachin got a facelift, Yaimiko got fixed, Kokomi eventually got fixed, and now they're trying to fix Eula, and I hope in the future they're gonna fix Crystallize. But just because a character gets fixed or like a meta gets, like an old way of playing the game gets a facelift, doesn't mean they suddenly become the new meta. Kaching didn't become meta, neither did Yaimiko. I mean, Yaimiko has insane usage right now, so it's very difficult to argue whether she is or she isn't meta, but she's very useful now. Cookie Shinobu didn't really have much use until Dendro came around, so a lot of these things can still change depending on what they implement in the game. But the beautiful thing is they never take away from the old characters, the old ways of playing the game. And once in a while, Hoyoverse does throw a bone at us and be like, hey, look, your favorite old character, Zhao, is getting a slight buff through this new character. And I think that's all players can really ask for when it comes to live service gacha games. It doesn't matter who you pull, you're going to not really regret it as long as the reasons and your intentions for pulling this character were not solely based on their current meta options. I don't know. That's a weird way to phrase it. But that's all I got for you guys today, right? Name is Nam says maybe Hydro Archon buff attack for pyro characters, crit for cryo, EM for Dendro based on the whole team's HP. That would be a very unique way to buff characters, but remember, not all pyro characters scale off of attack. For example, Hu Tao, right? Jin Yan, Dia, and then not all cryo characters would scale off of crit as well, right? But yeah, it could be interesting. Like, I could see a unique buff for each element, since Hydro touches all the elements. Technorar says User's Rage does not mean meta. Yeah, it does. Wait a minute. Yeah, it does. Because, okay, at least the metric that I'm looking at from CN, with the 100,000 one that I keep showing you guys, it's very, very in tune with meta. The top options are always the best meta options. Like those players, think about it, people who care enough to submit their data for this are more than likely meta players. They are very, very in tune with the meta shifts and stuff like that. Like, if you look at across all tier lists between global and CN, like the top used Abyss characters are almost always the most meta characters. Usage rate has to be corrected for ownership rates. Yeah, but the one I use is corrected for the ownership rates. That's the one I always use. And that's why, like, it's actually surprising sometimes when I show people the top used characters for, like, by these players, and it feels a little weird, but it's accurate because they also show you how many people own those characters versus how many people use them. That's why Shenhe, remember last time we looked, Shenhe was surprisingly high when it comes to her usage rate, but it was because that the percentage of people who owned her actually used her more than the percentage of people who own some of the other characters. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Until Wednesday, I urge y'all to stay safe. Peace, peace. Oh, I guess I'll have videos in between that. All right. Till then, I urge y'all to stay safe. Peace, peace. Bye-bye.